Hello, hello. I'm here today in the Tier 6 British Premium Aircraft Carrier, the Ark Royal. We're here today on the map Estuary. Mode is Standard Battle, and we're in a 5 to 7 matchmaking bracket, so we are middle tier. Here today using Andrew Cunningham on the Ark Royal, so I have a 15-point Andrew Cunningham, every skill except Concealment Expert, as you might know if you glanced over my previous audacious video. Let me turn it down. Music's still a little too loud. There we go. As I launch my rocket planes. Now Andrew Cunningham, as we know, he has the passive improved aircraft armor, which gives him a bonus 1.5% durability, or bonus 1.5% resistance to anti-aircraft fire. And in addition, he has the lightning fast talent, which activates when you hit when you acquire 2 flooding ribbons. This is of course useful for a carrier such as the Ark Royal or for down-tiered planes, because her planes are naturally very slow, so any speed she can get her hands on is extremely valuable. The Ark Royal is an exceptionally powerful carrier with short regeneration times and large squads, held back primarily by her relatively low plane durability. We did find a Nicholas, but he's beside a Huang He. Now, however, with a regen time of 46 seconds on my skuas and, well, fairly low personal valuation on the skuas, I'm going to try and get a nice accurate hit onto the Nicholas, now that myself and my allied Ranger have found him, because this combined barrage will help us open the game. So Andrew Cunningham's lightning fast talent is going to help alleviate some of the key weaknesses of the Ark Royal, which kind of keep her in check, because otherwise the munitions carried by her weak planes are actually very potent. So if you can ignore the part where they're on these crappy tier 5 and 4 planes, which are also very slow, especially on a larger map. I'm thankful that this is a mid-tier map, although I'm not thankful that this Ranger is going to ram me. You can get some benefits. So Andrew Cunningham gives a 5% speed boost after you proc his bonus for lightning fast, his talent. So you go from 100 knots cruising and 136 knots maximum to probably about 140 to 145 speeds, or 145 knots on your torpedo bombers, which is obviously a sizable chunk. Looking for a suitable target, there's 2 vulnerable tier 5 battleships in the center, it looks like, so I'm going to cruise with my torpedo bombers. Now normally I might have considered following up on that Nicholas with my level bombers, which are obviously very excellent against destroyers on the Ark Royal. But because I'm looking to just proc my lightning fast talent early, it's important that I find some suitable torpedo targets. Looks like he's turning down, both probably in order to dodge, but also because he has natural terrain in the way. So he's going to take my planes, cruise out to the side. We can't beat him to the dive onto the rock, but we can meet him on the other side. This is going to take some time, so I'm going to do a passive circle. There's a Helena over there that is not going to heal either, but more importantly, he doesn't have too much space to maneuver, but I think I'm going to stay with my original target. As a follow through, you can see there's a what looks to be AFK Congo beside him, so he should make a nice follow through target, because he won't move, firstly, and secondly it should be easy to aim for his bow and stern, where I'm less likely to get interference from the torpedo bulge. Oh, it looks like he's actually here, and I did get one of my 2 floods. Oh, he's turning toward me, or toward the angle that I want him to turn to, in order to get a good hit off. So hopefully, if all goes well, I'll be able to connect these. So we got 1 flood, we're looking for a second. There's that Nicholas I mentioned that I was considering going after. Okay, sadly we don't get our second flood, so it's going to be a little while before we proc that lightning fast buff. Now I do want to slow this flank down, that are advancing towards the position that my ranger and I moved to, although I'm going to consider going back to the other side. So I'm going to do that by using the level bombers with their 19mm of penetration against the Helena. The Helena has vast amounts of firepower, but is relatively squishy, and unlike the premium Boise or Nouveau de Julio, if you have the Pan-American variant, she doesn't have a heal. In addition, she's very thinly armored, 16mm all over if I'm not mistaken. Which means that unlike the Miyoko, which is going to shatter a percentage of my shells or much of the battleships in this match, she's going to take essentially full damage from me. Now her A is not great, but she does have access to a fighter, as you can see, and defensive fire. And I'm using tier 4 planes on a tier 7 ship, so it's gonna result in some losses. I did chunk him there for about 6.8k. Looking at that Algerie that's passing through the central gap. Relaunching to try and get some follow-up damage, but that 6k should leave a bit of a mark. My teammate's dying on the other side, so that is why I'm fleeing the battlefield over there. Algerie, which I was considering targeting, turning away, so maybe that Miyoko then is going to pass through, possibly into the center. Enemy Ranger going after the Devonshire or me, just going to interfere. So it looks like there's a fighter in our way. I'm going to trim once. Doesn't look like we'll get a straight hit onto the Miyoko. So I'm going to go for the Congo instead. I'm going to wait for as long as possible before I launch. I was going to lose 3 planes eventually, but I wanted to make sure I got a nice accurate hit off. Or as accurate as I could get it. Looking for a flood, and there's my lightning fast talent. And from this point on, my planes will be full speed. Advancing with the rest of the fleet. And you can see now my Ark Royal bombers have gone from cruising at 100 knots to 105. And when boosted, have gone from 136 to 143. Some nice improvements. Now I did mention the Miyoko is quite armored. She has a, I believe, 19mm bow and 25mm midsection, so I am going to have to aim carefully. It launches a fighter, but I have a full Ark Royal squadron. One of her key advantages is her large squadron size, which means I'll absorb the three plane fighter squadron and still have planes left over to make the hit. You can see here, 4 penetrations for minuscule amounts of damage. And the skuas that I suicided earlier are, unfortunately at this point, regenerated, so I'm gonna spend some time, try and dent that Miyoko. Now I could go after that Gaiere, I suppose. Maybe try and force his smoke. I do know approximately where he is. No, my carrier hull is detected. This is... The Ark Royal has always had particularly crappy detection, and this is not helped by my lack of concealment expert. He's right in front of me at this point. On that side, apparently. Just duck out, fighter screen. My ranger, thankfully, did give me some early eyes, so I, at the very least, am going to be able to get some accurate strikes. Skuas again showing themselves off as a unimpressive aircraft. He's smoking. Remember what I said earlier about not caring about the lifespan of these skuas. They can get replaced very easily and don't get used very frequently. I have a full torpedo bomber set to use after this, so that makes me very happy. As we've discussed in previous Ark Royal videos, these Fairy Swordfish carry the exact same torpedo as the Furious, the Tech Tree Tier 6, which means they have a payload of 5200 alpha each torpedo and 3 torpedoes, so they hit like a truck when they do connect. Now we are currently still losing, we're down 2 ships, but there's that low HP New Mexico on the run. Or low HP Ryuhu, I think, actually. My team, however, does need spawning. see if I can protect my cluster here. Enemy aircraft carriers sending attack planes, but even in her neutered AA state, the Atlanta still has more than enough to fend off tier 6 carriers, and there's 2 of them. And especially if they're running defensive fire, as I would recommend doing. Now I know some CCs that you might know might recommend against that because they think FAA is a bit useless, but I'm of the opinion that it still has its uses, especially for situations like this. I'm gonna try and chase torp that Miyoko. At least I give a nice fat broadside for the ranges of ours. You can see the turning is still pretty poor, even with Andrew Cunningham. Forced to drop here at this point. Need to cycle squadrons efficiently. I'd lose an Atlanta, unfortunately, to the Hwanghae. Although that did seem to cost the Hwanghae much of his hit point pool. Continue moving my carrier hull south, and we're going to strip the resistance away. Hopefully they can finish off the New Mexico. We are going to need those points. We lose the other Atlanta, which means this push squadron is now dead. It is fairly critical that we finish off these wounded ships here. The New Mexico in particular needs to be dispatched before you can heal. So I'm going to ignore the Miyoko, go after that wounded New Mexico that they failed to finalize. Now the Skuas are fairly bad at a lot of things, but they do have 25mm of penetration, 26 in fact, which means they are actually somewhat effective at punching through on-tier battleship hulls with the 25mm extremities. Especially something like an American New Mexico, who will hopefully take full damage, as you can see. I'm gonna try and preserve what's left, and if not, well, okay, so I've lost the 3 planes. Nothing I can do about that. Bayern in my cap at almost full health. We've had lightning fast procced fairly early, but this game has had us on the back foot for the majority of the match, unfortunately. T-61 not being very useful in this smoke. His torpedoes might have wounded those ships that are here now, but failed to secure an actual kill. And Helena in the channel's nice, but he has a fighter up. I can't actually kill him. Well, you saw he was at 13,000. Can also hit this Miyoko and kill him potentially. Pop a cooling consumable. Trying to see if he's going to alter his course. He's probably going to turn out and away. The unfortunate reality, but this time I've brought a full squadron. So don't match people in a turn. You want, in fact, to follow in. Not be lucky. And or I misaimed. Whatever you prefer, holding down on the air brake. If I get an accurate drop though, he will die. He's moving forward now, he's going to try and turn in to abort the torpedoes. But with the converging pattern, should be able to score at least 1 hit. Okay, Miyoko showing off the Japanese rudder shift. Nothing I can do about that. He gets a fighter from the enemy carrier, turning out and away. Raking his structure, but the Ark Royal bombers are not suited for dealing with targets like the Miyoko. Helena thinks he wants to tango. he really doesn't, I'll kill him. I still have torpedo bombers up. This is gonna be a loss at this point, you can tell. But I still have plenty of time to attack targets, such as a Seleno, which is threatening me. Was able to bring the kind of heavy feeling torpedo bombers on target. Again, as long as he responds, you can dodge torpedo bombers. They're not the fastest, so unlike a higher tier aircraft, which might be able to outmaneuver their target, the British Swordfish are less capable of such a feat. Nothing I can do about that. Oh, he has defensive fire still. You can see that angry red flag. Bumping one easily trims 3 planes. Unlike the Miyoko, he doesn't really have that much armor, but not able to score a great angle. I'm gonna force him away from me once more. Not gonna get a great angle on him, so I'm gonna turn away, let him eat at my Ranger's reserves, and try and go for a dive onto the Miyoko. We'll see if the Miyoko is in fact paying attention. Looks like he is, he's running in, so nothing I can do about that. See if he commits to the turn, he doesn't, but at this point they are going to cap out my base. But all in all, with the 5% speed bonus, which is largely the bonus that you get, you couldn't really feel it too much. Still felt fairly sluggish in terms of aircraft, unlike with the Audacious, where you kind of felt a marked performance increase. Still, for a middle tier game, the performance was okay. This is around average. The Ark Royal has her highs and lows. I've gotten as high as 180,000 damage, and 60,000 seems to be about the right bracket for her. Anyhow, 64,000, 8 torpedo hits, 41 bomb hits, 12 planes shot down by hull, 3 incaps, 1 kill, 3 fires, 2 floods, 8 spotting ribbons, 37 target hits, and 7 planes shot down by fighter. What you will notice, however, is that after scoring my initial early floods, I was not too able to pick up on new ones. I did go after what seemed to be 2 players who were at least paying attention with fairly agile hulls, the Helena and Miyoko, both with excellent rudder shifts, so we had some trouble scoring our hits there. But with that said, let's try and head into the matchmaker one more time and try and score a win with Cunningham to try and fully show off his potential. We did get the faster planes fairly early on in the match, but as you saw, because it's a percentage-based bonus, where it gives a 5% bonus to your base speed, and the Ark Royal has extremely slow base speed aircraft, the returns are somewhat diminished when compared to those found on the Audacious at tier 10, which actually has fairly decent speed bombers and torpedo bombers. It's just for fighters in particular which are somewhat uncompetitive, which benefit greatly from having the lightning fast talent activate. Loading up into this next match. It's a single carrier game, so I don't have to share this time, which is nice. And once more, we're in 5 to 7 matchmaking. You can see E-Girl seems to be having some fun with their clan tag, which is not my cup of tea, but okay. If you win a clan, or if you win a Kings of the Sea season call, I guess that's what you get to do. Or ranked clan battle season. Someone making some nonsensical comment. Is Shiretsu perhaps trying to provoke a carrier? Or avoid a carrier? Not sure. I'm sure there's some punchline to this joke, which is going to be extremely unamusing. Anyhow, Colorado, Fuso, New York. Nothing special there. Maybe the Colorado, I guess. Atlanta, Shores, Toronto, Emerald, Exeter. Exeter is actually fairly good for tier 5, but still a tier 5. And Atlanta, as I mentioned last game, something to avoid, especially with tier 4 aircraft. And then a Königsberg. And 2 destroyers, neither of which has good AA, although the Akatsuki you will find actually does have fairly impressive AA power for a Japanese destroyer. Find the Shiratsu, who was talking too much earlier on in the match, and the Exeter. Exeter has a fighter, so let's try and avoid that. How do you respond to that? You die. People, you die. He's trying to charge in, but because I pre-armed my drop, I will get at least some damage onto him. I've lost one of my skuas so far, but as I've iterated multiple times over multiple commentaries, your fighters don't matter, they regen in 45 seconds, and they do terrible, terrible damage outside of their niche cases where you need to use them to pen 25 millimeters of armor. Not the greatest hits, but it's just fine. He's trying to get into the cap. B is ticking, which is good, but there's an Atlanta coming toward that. So the Mahan is likely going to have to flee. Shiratsu turned towards B briefly. I don't know if he's going to keep coming toward B. He may well. Thanks to its relatively uncontested nature, I believe the Akatsuki probably went north based on the positioning. We'll know soon enough. I'm watching my detection ring. If I get detected right about now, then he headed here. If not, then he's more likely to have turned around for the A cap. Looks like it's contested. So I'm just gonna ride the border. If I'm not getting shot at yet, then he's toward this edge, right here. Ignore that. It's still contested, but it was not contested in the way that I thought it was. It was in fact this Akatsuki who's about to meet the ire of my very effective against destroyers level bombers. He was almost fully stopped before he accelerated. Oh, he gets lucky. Only 4 bombs hit him, but I still do break an engine and set a fire. Turn out and away from his teammates in AA. He's smoking, but I know his approximate location. Mahan shells tell me where he's not. Unfortunately not able to finalize. Squadron cycling means that I can use my rockets or my torpedo bombers. I know which one I want more of, so launch the torpedo bombers. Now, where to send them? The most threatening target to me that is actually accessible is the Atlanta. The Miyoko is going to suicide into my whole cluster, so that's not too concerning. So vulnerable targets include the Shores, and perhaps New York, who's a straggler, as well as the Akatsuki, if I can get torpedoes onto him. My Mahan going for a YOLO solo, but if that Shores is around the corner, he's going to be in trouble, so I'm going to hook him up with some torpedoes. I got spotted briefly, which tells me where the Shiratsu has gone. Akatsuki takes a torpedo. Hopefully the Mahan can finish him off. And we got a ram kill, hilariously enough. Not sure I would call that quality gameplay, but whatever. Anyhow, we're on top of the Shores with our converging torpedoes. Obviously the angle's not great for the initial pass. He's reversing. But with the converging pattern on British torpedoes, we're gonna give him a nice hit to the nose. And nose hits, okay. Nose hits did not apparently happen. Apparently it skipped past and decided to hit him on the flank. I touched the Atlanta AA, which immediately destroys the majority of my squadron that remains. Duck out of range for that, duck out of range for this. I cannot uproot him from that position with torpedoes, not effectively, so I am going to switch over to the level bombers. If he happens to off himself before I get there, well, that's great. Again, move with the fleet. The Ark Royal hull does 30 knots. Han, just sit tight and let me finish off that shores, and you will be just fine. Zooming over there with my biplanes. Obviously, this is going to be a bit awkward. Okay, he's saying he's blocked, I think. Yes. So, two priorities: to dislodge the Shiratsu while he's spotted. Oh, actually, we're not going to take this cap anyway, so we'll let the shores stay alive a bit longer. And we're going to put out damage onto this Shiratsu while I still can. Raking strike. Now I'm hovering over a metric ton of AA, so this turning attack is not the easiest, and I'm tagged by a fighter that someone launched. Not the best in terms of damage, but you do what you gotta do. That cluster is unattractive. That Colorado's actually one of the better targets now. So, well, it would be ideal to stop that cap. I don't think I will. Looking at the New York and the Colorado, the New York is obviously much less thorny. That was probably the Exeter fighter that I clipped. I'll turn away, see if I can convince the Atlanta to come forward. If he comes forward, then he'll no longer be able to maneuver, which will alleviate some of the anti-cruiser problems that we had in the previous match where they just ducked and weaved. This will cause him to be much more predictable in path, which is very helpful for the slow 40-knot British torpedo, converging pattern or not. There's one of our two floods, and unfortunately because the Exeter is very short, he is going to dodge another hit. So these are unlikely to hit, but I'm forcing him to broadside. He launches a fighter, but I'm not going to be here for another minute anyway, because these are going to drop and force him to stay straight, hopefully. Or he'll overturn. But the point is, I'm not coming back because of my slow Ark Royal bombers for a minute because, well, they're just too slow to be back. I get my second flood off the Exeter. It's going to be a permanent flood because he did, in fact, pop his damage control, and someone's going to finish him off. But I don't care, I got my speed bonus, so lightning fast is now active. Now we have been cap disadvantaged for a brief period, but we are quite obviously kill advantaged, because in order to get those kills, while they were throwing ships at us rather unsuccessfully, all the ships in the north got dispatched quite soundly. And there's a 20-knot Colorado behind a rock who's currently not shooting anything, so as you can imagine, that contributes quite greatly to a advantage state. I'm gonna go after that shores that I mentioned much earlier before we got distracted by the Shiratsu, although at this hit point total, he's likely to get picked off by someone else, but if I can snag a kill, I will. Shores AA is fairly pathetic, as you can see. And then the fast dropping Ark Royal bombs easily clean him up. The Ark Royal, of course, does drop that enormous cluster of 24 bomblets. They have really poor penetration, but they get the job done, especially against light targets like destroyers. This Shiratsu, for example, is probably going to get the hurt laid on. 5 bombs. He's fairly saturated, it looks like, so I don't actually deal that much damage to him. I don't have a full squadron of bombs to follow up with, but I can follow up with the Skuas in spite of their many shortcomings. You can see the lead required is actually fairly short. I relight that fire, and that's gonna hurt because that's gonna burn. For those of you who don't know what I'm referencing the game League of Legends, where if you die, the screen turns gray. So it's not something you want to see. Using my 25mm pen rockets, but against a tier 5 battleship which has 19mm extremities is actually not necessary, but this was of course just in case they failed to dispatch the Shiratsu and had to come back. This game damage is not fantastic, but we did at least manage to proc our lightning fast talent on Cunningham, and more importantly, we are going to win. Looking at your damage is all well and good, but in the end, the most important factor for determining if you're able to consistently perform and contribute to your teams is looking at how frequently you're able to win while still impacting the game. If you get carried across the finish line, well, that's an assessment you need to make for yourself, but if you have a particular talent for getting carried all the time, I suppose that's not too bad either. Plenty of targets to choose from. We did light a fire on the New York, so he will be nice to hit potentially, but he is slightly more angled based on minimap than the Colorado, who is on the other hand quite flat. It's already burning from 2 sections, as the Colorado's burning from 1 section. At this point, I'm just going to engage. Looks like the Colorado's turning, so I will engage the New York, try and finish him off. Remember, we still have that excellent British torpedo alpha, converging torpedoes, but I overled the target, but it looks like my damage combined with that of my team was enough. You can see here the short range nature of the Colorado's AA preventing it from being actually decent in terms of power. At this point, I'm going to descend into a drop, use my engine cooling consumable. My New Mexico does dispatch a New Mexico on my team, or the Fuso does dispatch a New Mexico on my team. Give him a nice lead. This time don't lead quite so much, I imagine. He turns slightly outward, but because this has an inward tilt, it might actually catch him. And we do get a nice clean 3 torpedo strike. Colorado's gonna die, so I'm gonna head immediately for the Fuso. It's just him and the carrier left now, but we're at 900 points. And we're gonna take another cap. We have 2 caps ticking, so I'm unlikely to reach another target. Due to the slow nature of my planes, you can see, even with lightning fast procs, well, they're not exactly fast at 143 knots well boosted. There is the Ryuho. Maybe someone can blast him. If there's a battleship here, they could well put enough damage onto him to kill him in the time that we have left. But somehow I doubt it, since it's mainly all cruise boosted. Nelson's the only one with a real chance of blasting him. Someone puts a nice meaty chunk into him, but it's not going to be enough. The caps are simply ticking too quickly, and this game will come to a close. 52,000 damage is not bad, but not the most exciting, so not the most exciting set of games overall, but we did get a win and a loss. 52,000 on this game with 9 torpedo hits and 3 floods, so slightly better flood RNG this time. 21 bombs, 5 in caps, 1 kill, 3 fires, 2 defender ribbons, and 24 rocket hits team score wise. Once more, second from the top at a very unambitious 1356. So overall, on the other British carrier with torpedoes, or the British premium with torpedoes, the Ark Royal, Andrew Cunningham is a small upgrade. The plane armor, however, is less felt because of the low overall hit points of her aircraft. Remember, she's using tier 4 aircraft, so they have small base hit point pool, so when you have a percentage-based reduction bonus like that found on aircraft armor, you tend to feel it a lot less than you would on the very beefy, audacious planes. And again, because her planes are slow, it's hard to feel the impact on speed because the speed bonus is percentage based. So this is my general build. This is a 15-point build. He has 16 points, but 1 unutilized. I'm waiting to get Concealment Expert as my final point. But again, as per usual, you take your core 9 skills. In this case, if you happen to be... Andrew Cunningham starts with 10, so you take these immediately. After that, I would probably follow up with Demolition Expert first, especially if you're putting him on the Audacious like I am. And also on the Ark Royal, the cluster bomblets also benefit very greatly from the Demolition Expert bonus. Followed up with Plane Speed, and then Last Gasp. Now, once you have Demolition Expert is the point where I would say go for Concealment Expert if you can afford to, but you will note that that is 17 points, so I didn't have 17 points to utilize. I only had 16 total, so no matter what, I was not going to be able to take the core 9 skills. Plus Demolition Expert, plus Plane Speed. And then CE. I think CE is the second last skill you should take, so probably take it at 18 and then go for Last Gasp last, but because I want to maximize my overall general power, I opted to go for all of the non-CE points first. Now if you're grinding Cunningham like me, and you don't have lots of elite captain experience stored up where you can casually click buttons and raise 19-point commanders for small fees of free experience in this case, then I would recommend possibly skipping out on Plane Speed, but only if you're using Andrew Cunningham. This is of course because you can make up for that 2.5% Plane Speed by proccing the Lightning Fast talent. Anyhow, his other talents are Consumables Expert, which activates after you get 2 kills. Unfortunately, when it says Consumables, it's talking about hull consumables, which means it gives you an extra escort fighter. And that's about it, at least on carriers. And then Sink, Burn, Destroy is obviously very nice. I've yet to actually activate it, but it's very achievable. Not so much on the Ark Royal, who tends to focus more on the alpha damage of her torpedoes and just use her little bomblets to set fires, which could potentially earn you a Witherer, but it's more than likely just going to be used to damage thinly armored cruisers and destroyers. But it's actually quite effective on the Audacious. I've just yet to proc it, but we'll get to that when I do my set of Audacious games for this commentary. As I mentioned, the Ark Royal only has 1 hull consumable, which is Fighter. Well, she does have damage control too, but that does not have charges, so that doesn't do anything. And upgrade-wise, I have the first 2 upgrade slots for carriers. Torpedo attack time, I don't feel that aerial torpedoes is too useful. For the Ark Royal, this is mainly because her planes are so slow that sometimes you actually do need the extra 5 seconds to get onto a target, particularly if you're responding to the target's maneuvers during the attack time. Although if you're more proficient than I am, perhaps aerial torpedoes could alleviate some of those torpedoes missing that we saw I had happened to me in the first match. And then last but not least, Torpedo Bomber upgrade. Tier 6 Torpedo Bombers don't have the heal yet, so you want to buff your best squadron as best you can. Anyhow, that was our Andrew Cunningham Ark Royal gameplay. We did get 2 games in, 1 loss, 1 win. Not a huge deal. But yeah, he's a marginal upgrade on the Ark Royal. Nothing to write home about, however. With that said, look forward to the upcoming official Audacious commentary game, not just a preliminary testing game. And I'll catch you then. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you all later. Cheers.